Michael Jackson sat in the back of a tour minibus on September 12, 1992, heading to Wembley Stadium for the biggest concert of his Bad World Tour. They were running perfectly on schedule. Everything was planned. Everything was controlled. Everything was perfect. And then, at 6:23 p.m. on a busy London street, the rear tire exploded with a sound like a gunshot. The minibus lurched violently to the side. Michael's security chief, Wayne, immediately went into protection mode. "Everyone stay calm. We're fine. Just a flat tire. We'll have this sorted in minutes." But as the driver examined the tire, as minutes turned into 20 minutes, as the backup vehicle was stuck in traffic across London, Wayne made a decision. "Michael, we need to get you to Wembley. There's a tube station 2 blocks from here. Leicester Square. We can take the underground to Wembley Park Station. It's actually faster than waiting for the backup vehicle in this traffic." Michael looked at Wayne like he'd suggested flying to the moon. "The underground? The subway? With people? Sir, 80,000 fans are waiting. We have 1 hour and 12 minutes. This is the fastest option." Michael Jackson, the most famous entertainer on the planet, took a deep breath and said something that would change everything. "Okay, let's take the tube." What happened in the next 90 minutes in the tunnel beneath London became the most magical impromptu performance of Michael Jackson's career. And one street musician named James Patterson, dying of cancer and playing for coins to pay for treatment he couldn't afford, would never forget the night a flat tire brought an angel into the underground. Let me take you back to that September evening to understand how a mechanical failure created a miracle. Michael Jackson had never taken a London Underground. In his entire life, he'd never been on a subway, limousines, private jets, helicopters, but public transportation? Never. His security team was horrified. His manager would have had a heart attack if he'd known. But they were out of options and out of time. Wayne and 2 other security guards flanked Michael as they walked the 2 blocks to Leicester Square Station. Michael wore a baseball cap, sunglasses, and a dark jacket, trying to blend in. It worked for about 30 seconds. They descended the stairs into the station. The familiar smell of underground London hit them, that particular mix of electrical systems, brake dust, and humanity. The evening rush was just ending. The platforms were still crowded, but manageable. Michael stood on the platform waiting for the northbound Jubilee line to Wembley Park. People glanced at him, did double takes. But in London, people see celebrities regularly and tend to be polite about it. A few whispered. A few stared. But mostly people gave him space. The train arrived. They boarded. Michael sat down, trying to be invisible, and the train pulled away into the tunnel. 3 stops later, at Green Park Station, they had to change lines. And that's when Michael heard it. Music. Live music echoing through the underground tunnels. Michael stopped walking. Wayne noticed immediately. "Sir, we need to keep moving. We're on a tight schedule." But Michael was already following the sound. "Do you hear that? That's Let It Be. Someone's performing Let It Be in the station." They rounded a corner into a long underground corridor connecting different lines. And there, about 50 feet ahead, Michael saw them. 4 street musicians. Guitar, violin, small portable keyboard. And a young woman with a voice like honey and heartbreak, singing Paul McCartney's words into an old microphone connected to a small battery-powered amp. "When I find myself in times of trouble, Mother Mary comes to me." About 20 people had stopped to listen, dropping coins into an open guitar case on the ground. Most people hurried past, rushing to catch trains, get home, get to dinner, get to their lives. Michael walked closer, mesmerized. Wayne tried to guide him away. "Sir, we really need to go. You have a show." "Just 1 minute," Michael said, never taking his eyes off the musicians. The woman singing was about 30 years old, thin, wearing worn clothes but carrying herself with dignity. The guitarist was older, maybe 55, with weathered hands that moved expertly across the strings. The violinist was young, barely 20, with nervous energy and precise technique. And on the small keyboard was a man who caught Michael's attention immediately. He was gaunt, painfully thin. His skin had the pale, translucent quality of someone very sick. A knit cap covered what was obviously a bald head. But his fingers on those keys were magic. And his eyes, when he looked up and smiled at something the singer said between verses, held a light that suffering hadn't extinguished. The song ended. Scattered applause. A few more coins tossed into the guitar case. People moved on. The underground waited for no one. The guitarist counted them into the next song. Lean on Me. Another classic. Another song about connection, about support, about being there for each other. Michael couldn't help himself. He started humming along, very quietly, then a little louder. The musicians noticed someone in the small audience actually paying attention, actually engaged, and they played with more energy. And then Michael Jackson began to sing. Not loud, not performing, just singing harmony, blending his voice with the female vocalists, creating a sound that made several people stop in their tracks. The singer's eyes went wide. She recognized that voice. Everyone on earth would recognize that voice. Her lyrics faltered for a moment. The guitarist's hands fumbled a chord. But Michael kept singing, kept supporting her, kept the music flowing. When Michael stepped forward into the small performing space, removed his sunglasses, and smiled at the four musicians, several things happened at once. The violinist gasped. The guitarist dropped his pick. The keyboard player's hands froze on the keys. And the singer whispered, "Oh my God, don't stop," Michael said gently. "You are doing beautifully. Can I join you? Just for a song or two?" The singer, whose name was Emma Davies, could only nod. Within 30 seconds, word had spread through the underground station like electricity. Michael Jackson is performing in the Green Park corridor. Text messages, shouts, people running. Within 3 minutes, the corridor was packed. Within 5 minutes, over 500 people had crowded into the space, pressed against walls, sitting on the floor, standing on tiptoes, phones out, cameras flashing. The underground staff, initially confused about the sudden surge of people, realized what was happening and made a decision. Let it happen. Shut down the corridor temporarily. Make it safe. But let this magic unfold. Michael and the street musicians performed Lean on Me together. Michael's voice soared through the underground tunnel, his harmonies wrapping around Emma's lead vocals, creating something neither of them could have created alone. The guitarist, whose name was Robert, found his rhythm again, his hands remembering decades of playing. The violinist, Clara, added flourishes that elevated the entire performance. And the keyboard player, James Patterson, played like a man possessed, like this was his last chance to create beauty, to matter, to be part of something transcendent. The crowd in the corridor grew. 500 became 800 became over 1,200 people. The underground had never seen anything like it. Trains were stopping, doors opening, people hearing the music and choosing to miss their trains, choosing to be late, choosing to be present for this impossible moment. Michael taught them Man in the Mirror. Emma had never sung it before, but Michael coached her through it, showing her the phrasing, encouraging her when she doubted herself. "You've got this," Michael whispered. "Just feel it. Don't think it. Feel it." They performed Billie Jean acoustically, just voices and Robert's guitar, the crowd singing every word. The sound of 1,200 people singing in an underground tunnel was overwhelming, the acoustics creating natural reverb that no studio could replicate. The guitar case that had held maybe 15 pounds in coins at the start was now overflowing. People were throwing in notes. 5-pound notes, 10-pound notes, 20-pound notes, 50-pound notes. The money piled up, spilling onto the ground. People who had never given street musicians a second glance were emptying their wallets, giving everything they had, understanding they were part of something historic. Between songs, Michael talked to the musicians. "How long have you been performing together?" Robert, the guitarist, found his voice. "About 2 years, sir. We met down here, actually. All of us used to perform solo in different stations. Then we found each other and realized we were better together." "That's beautiful," Michael said. "That's what music should do. Bring people together." He turned to James, the keyboard player, who had barely spoken, who seemed to be conserving energy just to keep playing. "You have incredible touch on those keys. Where did you learn to play like that?" James smiled weakly. My mother taught me. She was a piano teacher. I grew up playing classical, but I love everything. Jazz, rock, pop, soul. Music is the only thing that doesn't hurt. Something in the way James said that last line made Michael pause. The only thing that doesn't hurt. James hesitated, then decided honesty was easier than pretense. I have stage 4 pancreatic cancer, Mr. Jackson. I'm playing here because I can't afford treatment anymore. I'm playing because I want to make music while I still can. I'm playing because this is the only time I forget I'm dying. The corridor went quiet. Over 1,200 people heard those words and felt them land like stones. Michael's eyes filled with tears. What's your name? James. James Patterson. James, how old are you? 34. Michael closed his eyes for a moment, processing. 34 years old. Dying. Playing keyboard in the underground for coins. Making beauty while battling death. How much is your treatment? Michael asked quietly. Sir, I can't afford it. That's why I stopped. The NHS does what they can, but for the experimental treatments, the ones that might actually help, I need about £150,000. I don't have that. I'll never have that. So I play. I make music. I try to matter before I'm gone. Michael looked at Wayne, who had been standing watch the entire time. Wayne, call my financial team. Right now, I'm covering James's treatment. All of it. Whatever he needs. James's face went white. Mr. Jackson, you can't. I can. And I am. You're going to get that treatment. You're going to fight. And you're going to keep playing because the world needs musicians like you. Musicians who play because they have to, because music is life itself. Emma, the singer, started crying. Clara, the violinist, covered her mouth with her hand. Robert just stared in disbelief. And James, this dying man who had been playing for coins to maybe add a few more days to his life, broke down completely. Michael pulled James into a hug. This stranger, this street musician, this beautiful soul who was making art while death knocked at his door. You matter, James. You matter so much. And I'm going to make sure you have every chance to keep mattering. The crowd erupted. Not in applause, though there was that, but in something deeper, in recognition that they had just witnessed pure compassion, pure humanity, pure love between human beings who minutes ago had been strangers. Michael and the 4 street musicians performed 3 more songs. The guitar case was overflowing so completely that underground staff brought over a large plastic bin to hold the money. People kept giving. A businessman took off his Rolex and put in the bin. A woman removed her gold necklace. People were giving not because they felt obligated, but because they wanted to be part of the miracle, wanted to contribute to James's chance at life. When it was finally time for Michael to go, when Wayne insisted they absolutely had to leave or miss the concert entirely, Michael addressed the crowd one last time. Ladies and gentlemen, I was supposed to be at Wembley Stadium an hour ago. 80,000 people are waiting for me. I'm probably in so much trouble right now. The crowd laughed. But I want to tell you something. These 4 musicians, Emma, Robert, Clara, and James, they just gave me the greatest performance of my career. Not because of production value or stage effects, but because they reminded me what music really is. It's people in a space creating beauty together. That's it. That's everything. Michael turned to the 4 musicians. You're keeping this money. All of it. Every coin, every note, everything. This is yours. You earned it. Mr. Jackson, Robert said. There must be thousands of pounds here. Then you split it 4 ways, and you use it to keep making music. Promise me you'll keep performing. Promise me you won't give up. They promised. Through tears, they promised. As Michael and his security team finally rushed toward the train that would take them to Wembley Park, Michael turned back one more time. James, I meant what I said. Treatment starts immediately. Wayne will handle everything. James, supported by Emma and Robert, because his legs had given out from emotion and exhaustion, called back, "Thank you. Thank you for seeing us." Michael Jackson arrived at Wembley Stadium at 8:47 p.m., 1 hour and 47 minutes late. The crowd had been waiting patiently, confused but loyal. When Michael took the stage and explained what had happened, When he told 80,000 people about the flat tire and the underground and the street musicians and James, nobody booed. They cheered. They understood. They were witnessing something real. Tonight is dedicated to James Patterson, Michael announced. A keyboard player in the underground who is fighting for his life and playing music because it's the only thing that doesn't hurt. Let's all send him our love. 80,000 people screamed their love into the universe, hoping somehow it would reach James Patterson through the walls and tunnels of London. The video footage from the underground went viral before viral was even a term. Granny phone videos and camera footage showed Michael Jackson performing with street musicians in a subway corridor. News outlets picked it up. The story spread globally. Within 24 hours, the world knew about James Patterson and his battle with cancer. Donations poured in, not just from Michael, though he kept his promise and paid for James's entire treatment, but from people around the world who had been touched by the story. The fund raised over £400,000. More than enough for James's treatment. Enough to ensure he'd be cared for throughout his battle. James Patterson began experimental treatment at a London hospital 2 days after the underground performance. Michael visited him 3 times during his first week of treatment, sitting by his hospital bed, talking about music, about life, about fighting. "You gave me a gift in that tunnel," Michael told James during one visit. "You reminded me that music isn't about perfection. It's about showing up, even when you're scared, even when you're sick, even when you're dying, and making beauty anyway. That's courage. That's artistry." James, weakened by treatment, but smiling, said, "You gave me a gift too, Michael. You gave me a chance. And you made me feel like I matter. You do matter. You matter enormously." Emma, Robert, and Clara continued performing in the underground, but now people recognized them. They were the musicians who performed with Michael Jackson. Crowds gathered. Opportunities came. Record labels called. Within 6 months, they had a recording contract. Within a year, they had released an album titled Underground, featuring songs they had performed that night, including a version of Man in the Mirror recorded with Michael. The album went platinum. It launched their careers. They never forgot that it all started with a flat tire and a man who chose to be present instead of stressed. James Patterson's treatment was brutal. Chemotherapy, radiation, experimental immunotherapy. There were moments when he nearly gave up, when the pain seemed unbearable, when death felt easier than fighting. But during those darkest moments, he would remember Michael Jackson singing beside him in the underground. He would remember 1,200 people in a corridor, choosing to be late, choosing to be present, choosing to care. He would remember that a flat tire had brought him an angel. James survived. Against odds that his doctors described as miraculous, the cancer went into remission. By 1994, James was cancer-free. He would later relapse twice, in 1998 and 2003, but each time he fought back. Each time he survived. When Michael Jackson died in 2009, James Patterson was one of the speakers at the London memorial service. He walked slowly to the microphone, now 51 years old, cancer-free for 6 years, and told the story of September 12, 1992. Michael Jackson was supposed to be at Wembley Stadium that night. James said, his voice steady but emotional. He was late because of a flat tire. And because of that flat tire, because he chose to stop and listen to 4 street musicians in the underground, I'm alive today. He paid for treatment I couldn't afford. He gave me a chance when I had none. But more than that, he saw me. He saw a dying man playing keyboard in a tunnel, and he didn't walk past. He stopped. He listened. He cared. That's who Michael Jackson was. Not the moonwalk, not the sequin glove, but the man who heard music in the underground and chose to join in. The man who saw suffering and chose to help. The man who said, "You matter," and meant it. James paused, looking at Michael's photograph on the stage. Michael told me years later that he was grateful for that flat tire. He said it reminded him what his purpose was. He said, "Sometimes life stops us in our tracks, not to delay us, but to show us where we're really supposed to be." I think about that a lot. I think about how a mechanical failure created a miracle. How being late to where we're going sometimes means arriving exactly on time to where we need to be. Today, There's a plaque in the Green Park Underground Station corridor, right where Michael Jackson performed with those 4th Street musicians. It reads, September 12, 1992. Michael Jackson's minibus had a flat tire. What seemed like a problem became a miracle. Music happened here. Lives were changed here. Love happened here. Street musicians performing in the underground often stop and touch that plaque for luck. The corridor is considered sacred space among London's busking community. Playing there is an honor, a connection to history, a reminder that any performance, anywhere, can become transcendent if we show up with our whole hearts. James Patterson, now in his 60s, still plays keyboard. He performs regularly in the underground, always in the Green Park corridor, always near that plaque. He doesn't need to play for money anymore. The album with Emma, Robert, and Clara was successful. Michael's generosity ensured his treatment. But he plays because music is the thing that doesn't hurt. Music is the thing that saved him. Music is the thing that matters. The story of Michael Jackson's flat tire teaches us something profound about detours, about delays, about the moments when our plans fall apart and we're forced to be where we didn't intend to be. Michael was supposed to be at Wembley Stadium at 7 p.m. He was late. His schedule was ruined. His team was panicking. Everything was falling apart. But that flat tire took him to exactly where he needed to be. To a corridor in the underground where 4 musicians were making beauty despite struggle, despite illness, despite the world's indifference. To James Patterson, who was making music while dying because music was the only thing that didn't hurt. Michael could have rushed past, could have focused only on getting to Wembley, could have let the pressure and the schedule and the expectations control him. But he chose to stop, to listen, to join in, to care. And because he made that choice, James got to live. 4th Street musicians got their careers. 1,200 people in an underground corridor got to witness magic. And Michael remembered his purpose. Years later, Michael would say, "Thank God for that flat tire. That night in the underground reminded me why I'm an artist. I'm not here to fill stadiums. I'm here to connect with people, one human being at a time. The stadiums are just a bonus." The real work happens in the underground, with the musicians nobody sees, the people everybody walks past, the souls who are making beauty even when they're dying. Sometimes the breakdown is the breakthrough. Sometimes the delay is the divine appointment. Sometimes the flat tire is exactly what we need to get where we're really supposed to go. If this story moved you, subscribe and share it. Because the next time your plans fall apart, the next time you're late, the next time everything goes wrong, maybe that's not failure. Maybe that's redirection. Maybe that's life taking you to your underground corridor, to the person who needs you, to the moment that will define what your life is really about. Hit that notification bell for more stories about the moments when everything went wrong and turned out perfectly right. Commuters. Have you ever had a delay or a problem that turned into the best thing that could have happened? Share your story. Your flat tire moment might inspire someone else to embrace their detours. And remember Michael Jackson's words, "Thank God for the flat tire." Because sometimes the thing that stops us is the thing that saves us. Sometimes being late to where we're going means arriving right on time to where we need to be. Sometimes the underground is exactly where the magic happens.